So today we have Luke Ruffing, who's a strategic account executive at PandaDoc, who actually started in the company early 2017, worked his way into closing roles, and has absolutely crushed it since. So Luke, appreciate you coming on. If you can give us a quick story on where you came from and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Andrew. As you mentioned, started here in about 2017. I was working on our live chat on the website, just handling inbound leads that way. But taking a step further back, I actually found PandaDoc through a company called Discover Praxis. And so it's like a 12-month long boot camp where you apprentice with a different company, whether it's in tech or some other industry, for about 6 months. And then usually if you perform well at that apprenticeship, you get a job offer at the end. And so I'm really thankful to Jared Fuller, but he gave me the opportunity at PandaDoc to start as an inbound SDR handling live chat. And then I grew into an outbound SDR role, was there for a little while before moving into the account executive space where I've been for about the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's great, man. I haven't been in the company too long, just about a year now, but I watch you grow. I watch the outbound team grow. And I've asked this question to other guests before, but what are your thoughts on how important is the outbound function to a sales org, at least for PandaDoc, at least?
Yeah. So how important is outbound? Depends on where you are. When I started at PandaDoc, it was very much an inbound driven company. About 90% of our business was from trials and SEO, very much kind of like HubSpot in their model. But that only takes you so far. And here's what I mean by that is with inbound, you're at the mercy of what comes to you, the research they've done, how good your marketing team and the rest of the company is at third-party reviews and all that. But if you find a certain vein or a vertical that has a problem and you have the solution to solve it, you can go direct to the source, the customer who has that problem, and really educate them on that they have a problem, take them through the buyer's journey, and actually help them solve something that they didn't even know they needed solved, but it makes a bigger impact on them because it's coming from out of nowhere.
Absolutely. And obviously, at least Brandon and I know that you're very, very heavy on your outbound approach, working with nonprofit companies, et cetera. What's your just overall approach with that? Like this outbound you do and finding these verticals?
Yeah. It actually started just with an inbound lead. Previously, it would just be, all right, inbound lead, inbound lead, inbound lead, inbound lead, inbound lead. But things have been slowing down and things changed, obviously, back around March, April. So I found this nonprofit vertical where they had a need for e-signature, which is part of what PandaDoc provides. And I actually had the time and really lack of pipeline to go out and pursue it more. So something that's been interesting is rather than just, hey, here's who PandaDoc is and here's what we do, this has actually allowed me the chance to understand their business and how they operate much better than even I understand how PandaDoc works. And so that comes across completely different when you can speak to problems in that challenger type sale of, hey, this is what you're facing. This is what others who are having the same challenges as you. Is that affecting you? And the answer is usually yes. And that gives you an inroads to them that's even more powerful than, say, referrals.
Yeah, wow, Luke, first of all, it's amazing that you were able to sort of have control over your own fate in that way, especially this year. It sounds like, and from what I've heard from a lot of different people, outbound is really a great skill to have no matter where you are in sales because it's always going to be there. We're always going to need to go out and find people, whether it's a two-person startup or, a corporate, 1,000+ company. One thing that I've really enjoyed learning from you is watching you handle these calls with the nonprofits specifically. I just it's funny because I feel like the tone that you have is so specifically Luke. Like I don't it's hard to explain, but there's just a lot of space. And what ends up happening and what I've observed is that you allow the prospect to just say everything they're feeling. You know, like for you it might be uncomfortable, and we can get into this, but for you it might be uncomfortable to leave so much space in a conversation, but it's so effective in getting them to just spill pain, especially these people who aren't necessarily always being sold to, that it creates a really buyer centric sales experience, at least from an outsider perspective. And I was wondering if maybe you could take us through a little role play of that today so everyone else can get to see a little taste as well.
A little role play.
Yeah. Thanks, Mirror. So I'm going to be the IT director of Nonprofits R Us USA. And let's say that maybe Jed Marley booked me to meet with you.
Fine, get up now.
Yeah. And let's give everyone a little show.
Excellent. You want to start it off?
What? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You want to start it off? You want me to go?
Oh, you go for it.
Okay, excellent. Well, appreciate you meeting with me today, Brandy. Just want to set up a quick agenda today, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. So it sounds like your end goal is to be able to get documents signed electronically and store them securely. Is that what you wanted to cover today?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Just for the rest of this call, I'd love to recap how we've worked with other nonprofits like XYZ. Then from there, happy to dive into the product. We can cover pricing. But I'm curious, what's the most important thing you want to get out of today's meeting?
Oh, well, I think I'd really like to see the price. It's gonna really help me when I take it to my executive. And I'd also like to see the product. I want to make sure that it seems like something the people who are going to need to use it can actually use.
Okay, excellent. So we'll be covering pricing. We can show you some of the product, but I'm curious, just with being remote and as the IT director at Nonprofits Are Us, what's it been like onboarding just when you guys had to go on remote again, getting people tech? How's that been for you?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm busier than ever, honestly. Can't really bring anyone else on to help, but yeah, I've been able to just kind of step in and work a little extra to make sure that everyone is set up to be able to do what they need to do. Um, but honestly, it's been a crazy year.
Crazy year. Yeah, it sounds like you're putting in extra hours. So I'm curious, with the solution like XYZ, like PandaDoc, does it need to be drop dead simple to use, not only for your clients, but also your staff?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How would that help?
Um, well, I mean, it would probably save them some time, like not having to always figure it out every time they sign in. Not a lot of steps to do what they need to do would be great. And I think that the fewer headaches, the better, you know, that it would be overall great for our community of employees to have a weight off their shoulders.
Okay. Yeah, if you can make it easier, really take the weight off their shoulders, what's the impact?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know if I've thought that far. Probably probably good things, I'm assuming.
Okay. Well, just from talking with other directors, Brandy, Michelle springs to mind, but she had to onboard everybody remote, and she worked at Nonprofits RUS as opposed to RUS. That's the way it goes. But what she was able to do is find this easy to use solution. So she was able to implement it remotely on 1 or 2 Zoom calls. And I don't know if you checked out our product at all, because I found you guys, but we're actually rated the easiest to use by this review company
Oh,
section here. So if we can make it easy for you guys to implement and admin, as well as have, a simple guided signing experience for your clients. I don't know if that would help you guys save time, have a better user experience, but what would be the impact?
Yeah, that sounds like it would just make my life a lot easier. Probably others as well, but specifically it would really help me out.
Excellent. And so end scene. But I'm curious, Brandon, because we've talked about this a few times, but what set of questions did I take you through there?
Oh, was that the pain funnel?
Close. It's also Sandler, but spin selling.
Oh yeah, it was impact. Yeah, the impact always stands out. Is there another word you use, or do you say impact all the time?
It depends on who I'm talking to. Sometimes impact and benefit I use interchangeably. What's the benefit here? Is it going to increase revenue? Is it going to save you time? Or is it going to provide a better user experience? Because those are really the three things that people will get in terms of ROI on any product. So it's been my job to not tell them you're going to save 12 hours a week. You're going to decrease your document creation time by 65%. Nobody cares. It's much more, and I think of Bilal, excuse me, Josh Braun, but people want the problem that they're dealing with removed as opposed to just the benefits that they come with it. So what's the problem for ITR us or nonprofits are us? Sounds like you're spending a lot of time getting documents signed, going back and forth. It's hard to admin because you're all remote. What if it was easy to use? You didn't have to think about it. And it just, you need a document signed, it's done in 5 minutes instead of 5 days. What impact would that have? And then I let them answer that for themselves rather than me telling them what benefit they're going to get out of it. Because I like to think of sales as you're not, actually, here's a great analogy. You can lead a horse to water, but can you make him drink?
Simple and easy.
You
And
can make
Luke,
him
I want to add too, like, Brandon, you noticed the way he said how he used impact, the way he asked the question. Like the tone you used was so good because it wouldn't make someone feel like too much like on the spot. It was just like, so how does that impact you? Puts the ball in their court without too much pressure. And you can argue like each part of spin is the most important part, but the way you ask that impact question, I feel like in our industry and our product is probably crucial to how that sales call is going to go. So I wanted to point out how good that was.
Yeah. Yeah, your tone makes the whole thing feel not salesy, which I think for this vertical, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in specific to nonprofits, they smell a salesperson from a mile away because they don't get sales calls all the time. So they're the ones who aren't like, if they pick up the phone and you're all salesy at them, they're going to hang up because they think it's spam. They're not like a sales leader who's going to be like, all right, what you got, because it's entertaining. So you really have to sound like a person and still use your technique, but obviously the way you just did, in a way that makes it feel like they have a voice, that they matter. That's how I felt going through that experience. And the way you just pause, you don't even give that yeah, where there's nothing you could do to cut them off. You give it maybe 3 seconds after they're done to consider the next question. So it doesn't even sound scripted. Yeah.
actually just on that point, and I have to thank my dad for this. He's been working at SAP for however many years now, 12, 15. He's a solution engineer over there. But he taught me this. And whether you're talking to a fast talking New Englander, somebody from New York where they go a mile a minute and they want their problem solved right now and it has to be done in this way and XYZ, or you're talking to somebody from Georgia and they have their own set of problems and they all need solved, you don't have to slow down, which is wild. And just because I'm from the Northeast and I talk fast. And he actually wrote a whole blog post on this, but it's just pause. Count in your head 1,000. And not only does that give them a chance to finish speaking and finish their thought, And a side note to this is, who's the sales call about? It's not about the sales guy, or shouldn't be, about the prospect and their problem, and helping guide them to a solution that they find on their own. But pausing sometimes gets them to go deeper, because it's a little awkward. I don't know if you see me throughout this call kind of going to the water, going to grab something off my desk, a pen. It's uncomfortable for me too, that silence. But finding different ways to deal with it, leaving them a little bit uncomfortable, but also knowing that they can share if they have more thoughts on their mind, allows you to uncover layers and get to impact a lot more, like you mentioned, Andrew. In tech, people don't buy because it's fun, whether it's an exciting product. I figured that out. Otherwise, we'd all be using Salesforce or whatever had the best marketing material, best commercial. They have a problem, and it needs to be business critical to change from the status quo. And the only way you can do that is like leading a horse to water. You can't make them drink, but you can make them thirsty. The best way to make them thirsty is to leave them out in the desert for a long period of time. But stay there with them. They need help. Maybe I'm crazy. I've heard both.
That's so cool. And you know, that mirrors something that I learned as an actor too, which is you pause before something important is said. So it makes it feel like everything you're saying has a lot of, like, this is such a gravitas. Like, it's just all so weighted, but in a very meaningful way. Which brings me to my next question for you. Walk us through the process of you getting comfortable with taking those pauses, because you just mentioned it's uncomfortable for you as well. So what did that journey look like for you?
It's funny because you mentioned it earlier. People can smell spam and salespeople from a mile away. When I started at PandaDoc, I didn't know anything about sales. I was a 20-year-old kid who did high school and worked for 2 years at a golf course in LL Bean, just doing returns in the winter. And then I got into our small little office on Commercial Street. I mean, this was like 3 or 4 rooms, a couple desks, like 50 people just stacked on top of each other. I was in there with Mike Powell and Josh Gillespie, 2 of our sales gurus, OGs. And they sounded completely normal on a call. They were comfortable. They were talking person to person. And I'd only ever seen snake oil salesmen talk really fast, almost like an auctioneer. Hey, 5 of these, 6 of those, 7 of those. Hey, you want to say 500, 500, 600, 600, you want 750? No, it's just normal conversation back and forth. And I was like, wow, you guys just being yourselves, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, they can smell a phony a mile away. And that stuck with me.
That's great. I think I've never heard Mike Powell in a sales call just because of when I came into the company, but the way he articulates what's on his mind proves to me that he still is like expert in sales. And I've seen that style get passed down to you, to I know people that you've had on your wing, and it's going to keep happening to the same people that come in. And I totally agree. When someone's trying to sell something to you and it's just nonstop, over talking, I mean, put yourself in the consumer shoes. That's probably the last thing you want from your salesman, that type of tone. Maybe.
Maybe you're crazy. I've heard both. You have to have some sort of self-deprecation for me to do this because it's a grind. And I was talking with Patrick Downs and Reed Anderson a while. I know you had Reed on, which I don't know how you booked him.
Life savings gone.
He's one of the goats. Just
It was a hard close.
Biggest sale of our lives.
Appreciate that. But just with Reed and Patrick, we have this meeting intelligence tool that shows like talk times and all that. We were just sitting in the office late one night. It was like 9 o'clock. I don't know why we were there at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. Back in the day. But Reed and Patrick were talking about it, and they're like, yeah, man, just don't know what's different, what's going on. And we'd had a few, and I was sitting there and I was like, work less. Sell more. I'm like, what? And it goes crazy. Luke talking again. No. My talk times on calls, when it's a good demo call and I make them feel comfortable and they actually expand on what they are dealing with, their talk times are up around 66 to 70%. I'm down around 30 to 33% of the talk time on the recordings. You can see them. And it gives them a chance to feel comfortable. And with spin selling all the goals of these different Sandler techniques, Bantor, whatever, is to find the impact, the need payoff, and the benefit that the customer's going to get. Now, are you going to get there just by bulldozing them and hoping for the best? Happens every once in a while. Patrick Downs actually posted something recently. Have you ever bought a product even though the salesman completely messed up the demo or whatever? And the response is overwhelmingly yes. And I reframed. Have you ever bought because of a good salesman? Yeah. And a lot of people respond to that. It's not our job to push product down their throats. No. In tech, in SaaS, in any B2B position, you're there to help them solve the problem on their own. They should be the hero, the Luke Skywalker, which is tough for me to swallow. I have to be Yoda. But you're just there as a guide. Hey, have you seen this challenge? You know what's coming next? Here's what happens if you don't do it. Here's what happens if you do. And then they figure out how to connect the dots on their own. But you can show them the puzzle. And I feel like that's really where talk times and just listening and being uncomfortable or being comfortable with the uncomfortable silence and not adding filler words. Nothing destroys a train of thought like filler words. Yeah, gotcha. Yep, heard it. Oh, really? Okay. You ever been on a call with somebody and they're throwing those at you? Do you feel listened to?
Yeah,
Love it, man.
that's something we talked about with Reed just briefly last week. And it's so true because you think that you're conveying the fact that you're engaged in the conversation, but because it's virtual or over the phone, but really because of all the different audio weirdness that goes on when you're not in person with someone, it's actually worse. It's way better if you just go on mute and don't interrupt their train of thought. Haven't done in-person selling, so I can't say if that's also the case for in-person, but I imagine it's definitely weirder over Zoom or on the phone because maybe your reply doesn't come immediately. It's delayed for a second or two, and then you ahum something that doesn't need an ahum, and it's confusing. But yeah, like that definitely makes sense. And having a short talk time seems to directly correlate with a good call. It seems like just a successful call.
So Luke, obviously you mentioned a little bit ago that your job experience before PandaDoc, fresh coming into sales, from what we've seen, you've only gone up, definitely dramatic climb too. So this question for you might be tough, might have nothing to do with PandaDoc actually, but can you tell us about a failure in your career and how you overcame that?
Failure in my career. I just want to mirror you there.
I can't escape the mirroring between you and Brian and Patrick.
That was one of the best training things. It's just we were all in the office together and we'd mirror random words. I will get back to this in just a second, but we try to catch each other up and just say, hey, yeah, good mirror, you got me there. And then actually expand on what you're talking about. Or if they miss that and they just keep talking, you know, you mirrored them right and you got the answer that you were looking for. Oh, such a good one. But at the time I failed, I want to say maybe it was dealing with internal politics or not understanding how to sell internally. Because those are two entirely different things. Prospect, if you're in a new business role, you're probably only going to deal with them once, maybe at renewal, and they're the stars of the show. and you can make them feel good, do everything you need to understand what their problem is and help them solve it. But internally, you're dealing with these people day in and day out. You can't just ask them a pointed question, a hard line close, and expect to get something the next time. It might work once if it's valuable enough to them. But you start doing that 2 or 3 times, and then sometimes you don't get the answer that you want, or it delays something for the prospect that you promised to deliver. I'd say failures and learnings where I've grown the most, probably just understanding how to work with others on a team well. And if you look back at my previous experience in growing up, I played a lot of golf, and I loved it because it was an individual sport. And a lot of sales as an individual contributor, very individualized. You're in charge of your own quota, but it's still very much a team game. You can close a certain percentage of deals on your own, but man, you're going to need help on a lot of them. So you better have a good relationship with your team and be able to provide value to them so that they're able to help you out as well. Great question.
Great answer too, man. We haven't really had much opportunity to talk about your golf, but heard you're pretty good. And if it cracks 60 degrees there, all the way up there this winter, let me know and I'll come up and play. But anything under that's too cold. But that's a good answer, man. Appreciate that.
Under 60?
Don't shake your head, Brandy. It's relevant. My blood is thin.
He's such a Florida boy.
It was 42 degrees and windy last Friday, and I went on and played 18 holes in like 2 hours, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful. December golf in Maine, nothing better. Shot 602, which was nice, but no story.
Fair enough. Brandy, do you want to ask your favorite question?
I'm going to need you to do it because the gardener just took out the leaf blower.
Gardener?
Yeah, there's a gardener here. I'm at my parents'. It's a lot. I'm going to go on mute.
Good mirror.
Easy enough. So Luke, there could be a lot of answers for this question. I'm sure there's a lot of advice you have to give, but what's something someone can do better or do right now to get better at sales?
You want just one?
However many you'd like.
Okay.
Anything's helpful.
If it has to be one, it'd be to listen. And not with filler words, got it. That was my biggest struggle as an SDR, because I thought that confirmed that I was listening. I got it. Yep. Keep telling me more. They stopped telling me more. Just listen in silence. And then, as my dad said, just pause. 1,000. And that gives them a chance to finish their thought, finish their statement, or even better, if you're in any role in sales, them continuing on to a much greater problem than the one you asked about. So if it was just one, I'd give you that one.
That's actually excellent advice. That's something that I struggle with too, and I'm sure plenty of people do. But what's nice about that is for the amount of times we've asked that very question, it seems like every response has been different, but that one's very unique. And as a consumer, a lot of times you hear the salesperson just, yep, going on. And I feel like they're like pushing me away from saying more. So that's something that would be important for everyone to practice. But Luke, it's been super helpful, man. It's been really nice to have you on. We love watching you grow at PandaDoc. Keep crushing it in sales, and we'd love to have you on again in the future if you're down.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. Do you guys do plugs at all, or?
Do we do plugs?
Do plugs? You do any marketing, white labeling the space?
We don't need PandaDoc, but if you want to plug anything, go for it.
Yeah. If I want to plug this one thing, it got me started in my career. If I'm honest, it's Discover Praxis, discoverpraxis.com. And again, it's that 6-month boot camp. I know you're a Praxis alum, Brandy, but they give you a chance to learn outside of the traditional school method. 4 years of college, and they get you a chance to be paired with a company, whether it's in tech or another industry, to find a role that you love and a chance to grow. And without them, I wouldn't be here. So super appreciative to Discover Praxis, Jared Fuller, the whole program there.
For sure. We have a lot of Praxis people on, and as someone who didn't do it myself, when I managed a team at PandaDoc, vast majority of them came from Praxis, and they are pretty damn solid. I see it all across the org. So big fan of Praxis, what they do. Try to stay in close contact with Cameron, and yeah, man, good shout out.
Yeah, awesome shout
Great
out.
too. He sold me on Praxis, so ask him about that story.
Will do.